Hello YouTubers! Welcome to Big Buddha is Watching. I'm Big Buddha. I thought I'd do one in my pyjamas today. This isn't any sort of Shaolin monk costume or anything. It's early on a Saturday morning, as you can see. I thought I'd try and get this one out before Amy shows up. She might come through that door at any point, and so a little bit of real life will invade into one of these reviews. I'll try and get this one out before she turns up, so I can finally put to bed the George Romero zombie movies for good. I thought this might be the last of the zombie movies, but I did receive from Love Film the other day. I'll just quickly show you. I got The Crazies and Creepshow from 1982. So the Romero marathon might carry on for a little bit. I know I've also got The Dark Half and Martin still to come as well. So there could be 4 more in this series, and we'll see non-zombie related dead films, but films I haven't seen, so they'll be interesting to watch and critique and give my initial reactions on. So today I'm going to be looking at Survival, the 6th part in Romero's Dead series, his sextology, or whatever the phrasing would be. Just to, I said in the last review that this one could take place in either timeline. It's funny because I hadn't seen Dead before, but I had seen Survival before. When it first came out, I think, so sort of back in 2009, 2010, and although I hadn't seen Diary, it is very much explicit. I knew the plot of Diary, and it is explicitly stated at the start of Survival that the army military characters in this film had previously appeared in a documentary that appeared online, and so how I couldn't have worked out from that the main characters in this film had a minor role in Diary, and the fact that after that you have a subtitle that says 6 days after the dead start rising. So this is very much taking place in the rebooted timeline, from which, so you get 4 films in the original timeline and 2 in the rebooted timeline. Why I couldn't remember that. I think partly maybe it's down to the fact that apart from those 2 elements, one having the Sarge Crockett and his team turn up in Diary, and that little caption, this really does feel like a self-contained film. It feels like it can be almost its own universe in and of itself, or be a film from either timeline. I mean, I like that Romero stuck with his rebooted timeline, because I hate it in franchises where you just get the disposable movie, where they think that canon doesn't matter after a while, and the Resident Evil movies are a big are really guilty of this, of introducing elements that they just dispose of as and when they see fit, making the earth a scorched, ravaged place where life can't grow anymore. Oh, but in the next installment they're in a forest, things like that. Even the X-Men series kind of feels like that. So I admire Romero for sticking to his guns in rebooting his own universe and trying to create a new zombie universe for the 21st century. I got my breakfast on the go as well. This film was apparently inspired by The Big Country, which is a western from the 1950s. directed by William Wyler and starring or co-starring Charlton Heston. It's a film I've never seen. I like old Hollywood, and The Searchers and Rio Bravo, and I love westerns, so I'll have to check that out and see how much it marries up. I imagine this is kind of the big country on a much smaller scale, because this film was only made with a budget of $4 million. It's primarily set on an island off the coast of Central America, um, it's an island where all the characters have distinctly Irish accents. It's never fully explained why they all have Irish accents. Maybe it was inhabited by Irish settlers, and they just never got out of the habit of using a mainline American accent. But it lends it a good feel. It lends the film a kind of sort of old Hollywood, old folk tale-y feel to have it. It sort of has a quiet, a sort of vibe of The Quiet Man, which was apparently one of Romero's favourite films. In fact, apparently, in the moments of his death, he was actually listening to the score to The Quiet Man, which is one of his favourite films. So here we get a side to Romero that we haven't seen before. His love of old Hollywood and old westerns, and you get the impression that that's the film that he really wanted to make here. After, like I said, the military characters that were portrayed as bastards in the last films, they are the main protagonists here, and watching them back to back, I mean, you logically, I guess you could say they're the same characters, or at least the main character, played by Alan Van Sprang, Sergeant Crockett. Logically, he's the main character, even though in Diary he was very much portrayed as a villain. This time around, he's the central protagonist who we're meant to root for. It kind of works, I guess there's nothing really that contradicts. It's not like the character's a major overhaul. He just doesn't do anything that the audience in this film would make them lose favour with the character like he does in Diary. He's still got the kind of the hard edge to him. He's played by a Canadian actor called Alan Van Sprang, who's kind of cut rate Hugh Jackman. Yes, Romero. He is passionate about telling a good old fashioned yarn with this one. This is less him trying to make any sort of political point or satirical point. He just like I said in the previous video, he's an aging filmmaker at this point, and this is really, I think, him going, look, I had more to me. I had more I wanted to do. I wanted to. He's obviously getting nostalgic at this point in his career, and he's obviously wanting to try and create something that resounded with him in his childhood. But you still get it through the Romero filter. So it's still a horror movie. I think that's. I don't know whether his original intention was just to do a flat-out Western melodrama, and he couldn't get funding, so he had to do one in the guise of one of his zombie movies. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, because this very much feels like he had the zombies thrust upon him in this one. They don't feel like the thing that he's passionate about putting on screen anymore. What his intentions and his his passion really lies in the characters and the tension between the human characters and the melodrama in this one. I should briefly say that the plot of this is about the military characters from Derry finding refuge on an island where there's two warring families, and they're essentially cowboys. Even though it's not the Wild West, it's a it's the Hatfields and McCoys, and so you get the impression that that's really what Romero wanted to do, but through contractual obligations, or that through him having to produce another zombie movie, he had to put zombies in this, which is a shame, really. It's because I think the film might have benefited from not being a zombie movie. I think that they kind of feel, whereas we've got 5 films where the zombies are the overriding force, here that they feel kind of emasculated. They kind of feel only secondary, and they're almost background characters, kind of stumbling around, and you don't really get a sense of them being much of a threat anymore, unfortunately. One of the military characters is a lesbian. She's an LGBT character. That was probably a mistake on Romero's part. Not that you shouldn't put gay characters on screens in your film, but the portrayal by a 70-year-old writer director is it feels kind of ham-fisted. She's the type of character that feels the need to announce her sexuality to every person, every character she meets, just so it's there's no doubt in your mind. It's firmly established that that's what she is, and it's so crowbarred in. I mean, the first time you meet this character, she's who is she played by? Athena Karkanis. She's masturbating just out in the open, and it really feels like a kind of ham-fisted portrayal of a lesbian LGBT character, and yeah. I think he was on shaky ground when he wrote that character and kind of knew it. Although I do have to say, we do finally get some half decent performances in a Romero movie. Alan Van Sprang is good as Crockett, and Kenneth Welsh as Patrick O'Flynn, I guess the patriarchal character who's banished from the island, who's of the two warring parties, he's the one you're meant to root for. He's kind of compelling. He's almost too compelling. It's a funny. He's kind of one of those performers where he's almost too good for the material that's in the film. This would have been. You're kind of watching it and going, no, you're being too compelling. You're being too good, basically. This that's the frustrating thing about this film, is that you want it to be just a fun little horror movie, and that's where the disparity comes with this one, because you have that element running all the way through it, the fun horror, but it doesn't really gel very well at all with the other story, the other element going on, the Western melodrama, and so again, I just wish that Romero had just got to do that a little Western, and had this character in it, because it would have been a much better movie. Whether anyone would have seen it, it or whether he'd have even got funding to do it, I don't know. But had he done that, overall, it would have been a better film. This film has some really crappy CGI in it. I've been complaining about since Land onwards about the emergence of CGI blood. This one really gets off to a bad start with the very first scene of them blowing a zombie's head off, and they just stick the gun to its temple, and the skull explodes. It looks terrible, When you're going ooh instead of wow in the first 5 minutes of a horror movie, you're on shaky ground. Just very quickly, something that's I haven't touched on in any of these films or in any zombie movie really. Well, not any zombie movie, but a lot of them. But especially The Walking Dead, I think suffers from this problem. Is that I never kind of buy the zombie infestation spreading to the point that it does. At least especially in North America. I said Central America earlier, I meant North America. Because everybody's armed to the teeth there. Whenever you see zombies attack, they always either eat the protagonists, or if anyone ever gets bitten, they always have the head blown off, either then or there, or 5 seconds after they turn. See, I always think, well, how has the zombie infestation spread this far? Because you literally, I think it'd be interesting to see a film. I mean, I'm sure there are. Well, I mean, there are plenty of films where this happens, where you see the zombie virus spread like a contagion, but you never really get to see that in Romero movies. With the exception maybe of the first one, they all kind of deal with the treatment of the infestation rather than seeing it spread. And The Walking Dead is very much the same. It's all guns and bullets and splatter. That's just a little nitpick. It confuses me that there isn't more of a need to show that more, just to explain the pandemic level of infestation in these stories. This film, like the CGI blood, it is kind of peppered with a few ham-fisted moments of direction, lazy bits of direction where had they just taken a bit more care on the logic and tried to make it make more sense, it would have come across a lot better. I mean, it's refreshing that there's a refreshing lack of commentary in this film. It was kind of nice in the zombie moments to see Romero just trying to have a bit of fun with the zombies. The zombies do feel slightly emasculated in this film. That they're almost just there for sight gags instead of being a real potent threat. This is the one that really doesn't have that icky sense of apocalyptic dread. The zombies turn up, but you don't fear it for them because they're just there for jokes about them getting caught on fishing lines or getting set alight with a flare gun, and then Sarge Crockett lighting his cigarette off the flames. That's how the zombies are treated in this film. The lack of commentary, because Romero is just trying to tell this good old-fashioned yarn, this old story. There is a line towards the end about going over to a place where you're not wanted, and I've always read that maybe as being a slight dig about the Iraqi-Afghan situation, which was going on. It was very much at the forefront of public consciousness at the time the film was made, in the same way that 9/11 was when Land was made. I really like the final shot of this film, though. I won't spoil it, but that was a really imaginative shot and a really beautiful looking shot and a good one to go out, both in the film and, as it turned out, in Romero's career. So, on the whole, it's a muddled, unsuccessful attempt to fuse a Western melodrama with zombies. Why no one's really took the reins on doing a zombie Western before, I don't know. A friend of mine, we had a go at writing one a few years back, because we thought that was such a brilliantly potent idea. I mean, it's been done before, but there's no. I think the market's still ripe for the definitive zombie Western. A sort of cross between the Hateful Eight and Dawn of the Dead. The film is noble in its intent, but it is flawed, and in a funny sort of way, I just kind of wish it wasn't a zombie movie. I think it would have been far more successful. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Survival. Like I say, I'm still toying with what to do next. I did mention Reanimator, but it might be The Crazies next, and then Creepshow. Well, like I said, all the way through my Peter Jackson marathon. We'll see how we go. I'll keep on. I'll persevere till I get bored, and maybe do the entire output. So hopefully I'll be slightly better attired in the next video. And until then, this is me, Big Buddha, signing off, and I shall see you all out there in YouTube land.